Council Mayor kita Roguy, Happy New Year. Happy Chinese New Year ngayon ngalget half Chinese half Palawan Happy Chinese New Year milulmo el alsil se sulang moiwai kau majanis katangal tangater el alsil sa Miss Lindsay Timarong ngalngi Presidente CEO sel Pacific Island Development Bank al main officer niya ngarakwam ngartia lo banggeter el alsil se mo maray rakab singay magatamal marenga sulel mlos of el May mal bukta appointment ni el alsil semang ngasen ngo kadel bong dikwase ya kamatya ko mal interesting al topic era kato mo malas direkal mal swadel marenga sulel Palau Eco Paradise el gukmlo sab edel link man sab edel rich el morar batokol adel gora ngaya interested tira togora alon al ubang idil products ma services el provide a Pacific Islands Development Bank makmun masa Miss Timarong malgukal dusese yellow ay sige dulwaseng ngang redirigere mlos tataloader oy ngarang wangarate telel tialbang malungil silse Miss Timarong kun maskaw maguk mo mula programmer gid
Kamral masawle misunya martel te aluguk mira talk show tel Pacific Islands Development Bank awayal dakal salbatokol ada matangali di belawa mal kloa history ringir tel bang le belawa mle amongst those three ay galgot ledel balu le kamit establish rapang ni May 1987 tel belawa already sige del timing members el other Association of Pacific Island Legislatures ya al adra ay gal bekal adal ay gal bekal ulbil rabalura Pacific el lotmage mustart telom daswa mutletele la regional institution el sab el help ay gal balu el develop pa ikan nami sama direct kalmorole la social development regal bekal balu mungulgi usay del adra APIL 1987 etiram no start el walgura brainstorm lomta perpasit yang mo nga nga tetel el institution ya July na 1989 ya balur belaw mabalul up mabulabe amnora kwamen in a signing ceremony at takamit telosi sa up to 1 million el capital shares el lomu ulit yalbang may igal ng 8 tel balura Micronesia balura CNMI makwam mabelaw may gel 4 state government sa FSM Mabalura Republic of the Marshall Islands ay gigil balun lotmage TV kwasay tumo-osi sa up to 1 million sayam na kotal initial promise certi up to 1 million in capital shares help start lending programs sa sabira businesses mga individuals mga households access affordable financing self-malklo mission ra PIDB is to accelerate economic and social development within those shareholder jurisdictions individually and collectively. So, siralgot talo mo labang yung the lending activities silbang kamiru regalbek shareholder governments amna restricted to only up to those capital shares and inject into the bank. And then somewhere along the way, tukok not magi kasi no, the Micronesian way kadakay nga sew. Ikaw kledma, mambay balura saibal amle wal leaders del initiative kwasel suko mangguk ngari nga mate el capital ramam there are viable opportunities ngara saibal or within the CNMI jurisdiction sa bedel lo mese finance kukto me sa projects regal baby rabalul kasi ngari ate alam opportunities sa bedel masew may sige ako na teleta ilam say mal klung yole la membership rebela ora al seltial banga lay ako na di most pera situation al time. The last time Rabela o losis about Bessel Ludo dara PIDB amne 1995. So with the 1 million that Palau had put into the bank, imbay mlamo almost more than 3 million. Kalbang kaplan investor ngira balur belaw. So in the scheme of regional funding, it might be a drop in the bucket, but it's return on Palau's investment 3 times over than what Palau has put in. And even to this day, Akmalumol will encourage rather than submit the applications. We don't close applications even though there's not an identified funding source. By SOMA will demonstrate that kasi there is demand and there's volume of interest. Masel demonstrated need that community for access to these types of low-cost, affordable borrowing para sa startup businesses or or to a limited extent kal marula consumer loans lingid meet or aligned with the social mandates rama. Yeah. Sira 2001 misu yama it aboard rabang kamne decide then structure rabang, so it operates as a non-profit institution. It was recognized kasi with our development mandates, hindi ka profit sharing. Egal member state governments or member governments. So even though we're structured like a bank, we operate purely as a non-profit institution. Raise or sell question kasi, well then what do we get out of our membership? Akong dasing say strong partnership and collaboration, may opportunities of access to funding even when our capital has been depleted.
Mang kawase kada Lilia 1 Abela Lilia sell share ngil 1 million ra 1995 and until now when they ka hatalutal malang.
Why say?
Mael ang waya semdula seng wal 3 million na plato to ng palgula se tangalagel bela wamla aplar say gidal lengalak or say gidal 1 million and le investment ter belaw. Mga those 2 million na ludo darabe birabalo. El blal injected more kaya el PIDB.
I say, and not so much ang ulo de la baby rabalo lesel el atalbil kasi atleta el alta kasi ngidil additional capital in excess or say del 1 million en mesoyis ba agira del investing in makotra al say gidil el balulol sis ba besudo the legal repayments ragel besel loan ay gaya mo part of the general pool of funds that becomes available for all shareholder jurisdictions to share. To benefit from.
El ang as of sira 1995 and melmuter el ang tatelal other belam la apla loan el blan awarder tira loan
More than 30
geared and mora
majority of the business loans, about 80% of all of the investments ra alsel bela wamle towards small businesses, startups sa may existing businesses at the time and so nila expand.
Wow. So 30 some ngiamal mon mal nganiar dirga aplalo ngalgal pelaw.
Why say miso niya in fact ang mal ka mga ta wait list rara other to ko niya housing rel ang mal maringal other access sa affordable housing either if it's materials or labor to construct or simply borrowing money the cost of borrowing for housing purpose direkal man lang masama
ngaring ya elakam lo mention na housing ngaring ya direkal blamwesel applicants ratora bid funding like small construction company sorry rapid fund ra project tertir
al time, and I think throughout PIDB's history, madigil traditional credit products it's actually a good time to start talking about or introducing where there's a need like infrastructure finance, for example, or bridge lending and more developers but then yet don't have the capital or apartments or commercial space product every 3 years yabang ka omes or sell strategic planner ka ma'am. May of course I got past 3 years agiudul masyatial recovery after COVID.
I see.
May manlor baba delinquency rates magiwog ginamalmutal reconnect with borrowers o mesay kasi ngaramlo ula financial difficulty identify kasi makalagim makalorior marada de made worse off as a result of their debts but that they continue to cooperate with us man sa amal recover that without having to take away people's assets. Sige, let's focus on making our operations a lot more strong and robust and safe. Over the past 3 years, sige daw kami focus rapport the mga policy makers rabang ilapang ka umu or still BSL 3-year cycle all time. Next Board of Governors meeting rapang ka morning rasaypan around April or May area this year. And they'll be revisiting the strategic plan. Omes na yun baby products sa elol nga seon sa akla the business environment and private sector growth mo at rera may local institutions.
Kom lo mention was si Bella wala stelol si sabaw to inject do vera 1995 laang raw ulman di halol mol malang mo sabi mo ay sel mom gate wala ka lol asigi del guk sharing ngara kora al ubang di mo yora leadership every 4 years and guk chen unless it muter get re-elected or board al ubang kawa gidem loader lo pangelaigel Balu will make sure to inject daw then morning sing wang ratetele.
No, kapay maral masaw ask that question because I think nga kati aktir kamne elme partra management team rabang sira January 2020.
Oh, so you've been there 15 years.
Well, about 5 years.
5 years. Sorry, 5 years.
About 5 years now. It's in relative to the history of the banking mal kadebal time. Ini sayam netara a challenge rabang from inception and then I guess the first decade and a half and it was a challenge to get all of the member countries fulfill or say the first $1 million commitment. Katamnongal tangat telebela wako malmlim sisi already in the beginning. And then I think throughout the years, and it's before my time, so I can only speak to knowledge from reading the historical records. And laakok lumungod priorities aygal governments, and because of Tialbank having a regional perspective, and I think it kind of was set aside in favor of local institutions and that's when there's a real opportunity here utilize or bangal benefit balulek na mesaklun yun laurel sen tabetadage to address common challenges challenges do me serbelar ang dire kalyo sisiura FSM dire kalyo sisiura Marshall Islands so baluri ra kupla mo start the Mr. Tialbank as panak mo uspe tigingin la chairman na board of governors ra mamarel ang nagimo meeting Claude Teal for this bank to be a vehicle of prosperity for our communities. Maldim nakal intention or tigil founders ra bank for PIDB mo competition to compete with local institutions. By gila la PIDB lawyer malisi ay local institutions sa gidaling. From a regional perspective, because of strength in numbers, the attract external sources of funds and maklo, the sources of funds is scaled up, already deployed through local institutions. That's the policy direction to bring the bank back to what it once was intended to be. But
to help with the economy and the infrastructure and so forth. Gora empower our mom and pop store in a way.
Yeah. But local industry and trying to develop other sectors rely so heavily on one particular industry like tourism.
So, Ako ring sergal mga adu ang hamle attender sila. Kung da sing lamne 2018 sa Ragim Journal sel meeting rapo labe imlan niya former delegate Sweni Onido of course former minister finance elbo ilsatang magimlo attender sel meeting aka na have an overview over it hindi ako ra wandel wasing meel ang ay gayudal kami teranggal chairman na kami self comparing in moy bankra FSM our National Development Bank sabedel wase interest kami almutel ngaryo ra interest tira at level malaha using al ubang commercial loan siya ulmanggora to as your boss said it's like a vehicle to prosperity like selbe that time hindi gal interest then mal too much ra ipangela adel for somebody especially start up a business or ni malubang blil
we say no it's interesting you bring that up paling ay gal tokora banking ma credit worthiness sil evaluate niya maldosisyo from a risk standpoint adi mo klakaros ra atleta ma tetelela lending and gal banks adi mo your still risk appetite ra institution. So what is an institution's risk appetite and who determines an institution's risk appetite? It's the board and management. May ako ngal tangate misung yaman at gal board ra Pidb has always been progressive and proactive in terms of really trying to look for ways to make the most impact and the most longest lasting impact. I mean, a short-term profit sa kumda swing important talingi na demonstrate the prudent fiscal management ng idil organization. From a credit perspective, sabihan mo understand like lending practices will give more conservative than ours. Like maralgina dahil ultimately the protect interest regal institutions, but we have to temper that with the needs of the community that we're trying to serve. So ako lagi sal klakaros, and I'm not saying there's a wrong and a right way to run development banks. Di malngal tangat at board nga kamanli supportive of when I first took up the mantle rat CEO. That was in August 2021 yakno acting gel predecessor nga kakuk Miral yak acting almon mo February 2022 ta-announce ra position ne kuk aklo lagi mangilta may nga kamasegi dal time coming out of COVID aklo recognize al kwasegel small businesses ma households mal struggle repayments and it was really because of conditions that were out of their control.
I see.
The pressures of inflationary prices and bearing down on the cost of living, and then wage stagnation. So the rate of prices getting higher and higher was outpacing the rate of the increases in incomes and salaries that are and even businesses and less struggle for customer base and that was no longer able to pay for the services that they were providing. Struggle for repayments kuradim naka avenues and mo sabiil connect with a bank audio to cure those delinquencies and defaults. May Klagi the border Kamama was in favor of looking for ways to bring down the cost of borrowing, or at least putting temporary measures that help ease the debt burden on our borrowers. So for PIDB, agim na institute a mechanism kasi okay for risky borrowers. Ang maral gina dal price in that risk al mura cost of borrowing mo ulma interest rates malmol ngarba malmor tigil borrowers malmol struggle na repayments. Ding sa the lome sa baby terms and conditions and sa the extend term It'll put temporary measures in place among your on a graduated repayment schedule. Altang this the amount for the next 12 months. And then we revisit it. Improve our revenue, cash flow raw. It'll increase your salary payment. And then give you time and adjust financially. So, again, programs sa mama, they're all subject to that interest rate discounting mechanism ilang. So for those borrowers in strong repayment capacity, we can come down as low as 4%. That's our floor rate for housing.
Wow.
So range ilang for housing loans ra Pidb up to 200,000 maximum ringi, and then 4 to 7%. Magyo mo ulara 7%, and then umisal kasi if you meet certain criteria, demonstrate to kasi you're a safe borrower, agyo nga tiya interest rate mo at say.
Wow. Mandial cap to.
Mandial cap.
Wow. May elang araf tigel 30 sa other bela na malo ng telar tira mila adang ni rogol dimlora business loan or commercial loan.
About 80%.
Inya the housing.
80% nga the housing consumer to a small proportion of the remaining.
Etela interest ter mayra consumer.
Ela consumer loans are mama up to 25,000 na maximum. Agi omo ora 12% is pamal come down as low as 8. Again, hindi depend ra criteria.
And then I think a while back I saw akmil sa direct gum direct ka sa pamil help our families help put their kids student loan. Am I correct or same chance?
In the past, ayan consumer loans ra kama ma'am na include ayan for medical treatment or not scholarships but school tuition and education training expenses or funeral expenses, or as long as they aligned with our social development mandate. Agi mo entertain consumer loans. Amla change is used to be a consumer loans amla unsecured.
But now and then.
Then after our COVID experience, yabor dam no kasi agi man have to write off patukal consumer loans da ka security ni mga da karon game recover agi din outstanding debts that are other labor them na mo require kasi all of our products have to be secure.
Do you kumala deposit atang gukti payment there adal malalo na kami?
Yeah, we're not a deposit taking institution. Naging mali focus on lending ay gilguk capacity building initiatives to design labor then so abang kalboloro din Koraswat ang mamdingin wase malsuko mga year leaders sergi the lorengs. Koraswat al title on the top of your head if you know alwasing title tamaltil al other bela koramla apply okore makaratong osugal mo sa mga dadura leaders sergi the lolya selguk blingalel belaw. Thank you. Since I started in Mirilang, I had to go and review our application log to see if we've gotten some updated numbers. More than 80 applications are on the wait list. And this is for businesses and housing.
The other belaw.
And so that's over 5 million in loan requests just for Abelaw. El time bank sits on about more than 17 million in capital, and then we've invested most of that capital except for 1 million that's restricted to agigin del besel balul sisma besel dil gup sigagim invest agigin del jurisdictions. It's elang esel o singe lapang kar elang hindi ka available lududel belawol
may say
in order to commit to funding these applications. And you go through the pre-qualification process at di mama adal kalbol route they'll spend although the time will require the documents or putting together a package based on our checklist when we cannot guarantee that a decision will be rendered they must amal funding anytime soon. But at least through the pre-qualification processing sa amalo ay sa atong processel amount til request rin does it have a good chance of being approved or not. So through lending products sila kami for business loans yagyomes ra mokte kara request kasi tiyang mo fund ra startup mo fund ra expansion. Does it involve construction? Does it not? Does it sit on leased property or fee simple property and pledge as collateral for the loan? And then so kasi aklungel la a value ragel assets sa pledge to mo secure loan ng wanganang based on the collateral valuation ng sa mo determine kasi does this request qualify for ultimate processing ma decision rapport hindi ka cap on business loans but we can extend terms up to 20 years if a business loan is secured by real estate. Yagyo mo ora 10% is will come down as low as 6%
Wow.
for business loans.
Wow. Mang tirgal mla apply like matingal wasing la angayar la or ranks el curious wase me el alsum to file application or tirgal ngaringi tamla mo makatatal mangila to have their papers of course kal amla review makamtingal wasen di tayidal ludo del belam katatal di halola ang ngorang ngara that sip edalo aisar adara blulwa sengara silgora tai waiting time whether it's house loan business loan or consumer loan la angkora tai time sip edalo sing 6 months to a year for waiting period or
at tangaling tigil lang ang waitlist since 2022 but we have been approving loans through tegil talbil kasi so more viable opportunities and there's funds available out of that general pool of funds from the repayments on loans and finance through capital injections since 2021 there have been new loans for Palau on the books of the bank maramas ning agi maldir ko to dedika go by order of waitlist tel loan team rakama mamal oil check back with our applicants mo subes I know it's been a quarter or it's been half a year kadi ka nga waitlist and so malmol nga waitlist el sumtok mo oy
malmol so
and then
go down remove
so hindi ay ko cancel sin application engel ang nga next
mang makaratang hosugal mo smikrol wase makarapotol si sabaw dal al leader sirgi dal loreng sing latang sa edalol nga certificate gid tokol nga kel belawol nga waiting list hopefully through the power of God.
No, akmal, ikay gidil bisa kal may asal mitaloban leaders. All I can do is advocate for the applicants. Direct kal tingal applicants sa advice kasi the reason why nga waitlist is because hindi na malosig mo available ludo dun mo sa amalguk funda projects nga rabelaw or funda applications nga rabelaw. Maldi on tige Miss Sunyama is I know kasing bato ka I get priority areas ra development arole lagay sa dolas malisi ning hopefully mo nga rin isel o singular leaders kasi may abela wa mal part ra o October kel Pidb may madulutan mo mes aklung yun lala o spera institution ma organization nalol nga sa uraraat maldegi mo las malol nga song sa kukutaw dal mura bebira programs ma institutions alwarwa NDBP may so mamalo sigat ti al collaborate partner altang kakaro sa risk appetite sa legal institution, so where maybe ilang mal sisi a working relationship ra ma development bank sa FSM Marshall Islands. Edik share lobantriar or other is the House of Delegates Eli. FSM Development Bank kamla o si sa 2.5 million ra al sila PIDB through a soft loan arrangement. So, it's at 4% and we have 10 years to repay that money. El malol diol nga seurar citizens ra FSM at kirakwam. El mga orab liri restart a business certir.
Wow.
Yeah, Marshall Islands Development Bank may mesa program for FSM citizens. Kung sorry lom kasi ura si sil program ra citizens certir na out migrate. I think one of the questions from senators or saragigo ko bom courtesy meeting ilo tani mar other border ka mama kasi hindi na kan nga other belaw maybe tang ra marigel na mosori lomdas pamutan merbelaw ni while they're working in the asil kam ko orability or the asil support ako ka ayel mo local business sel lameng sil retire emrul mals edlomes sa programs and mga similar other belaw it's just your funding making it a priority.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that Mr. Maronling ngayar baby dar solda will mlame tedira ka ngal girar sa legal tedira ka waram le soril apply alis and now that they're in the military mle soril wase the invest and mga rurability they rent out their ngi until such time ding gorawal goramal maring lalolalis ulgumay gal state governmental apay sabil di tugura imol klungela ut me ase okay tiamal digit and morar ngal gel belal soldaw man therefore al sumsomi wegi di tugura 1,000 square meter or 500 lingol street el tokora housing el quick mali housing area rar soldaw e unda sendira ka parte tegi del lureli kum somil tegi del bangalol nga sewel help ra development ma economy ra balu. So I hopefully in the future ang mo sabaril our leaders are gitan mo kongel at least lolya 500,000 and then slowly it doesn't necessarily have to be that 1 million.
Yeah.
Le aktira ka seragim attender tial meeting ra PIDB ra bolabe tamlom in general waseng gora ma sel time akora rireng sulwase gada investa 1 million ra PIDB, why can't we do it at our National Development Bank? Makora swaka loker ka ulwase tegi de lo shishulger. Maybe ngara sabi the ruling mo sabi our leaders sergi then mo consider el pam inject tawdo then mora PIDB el direct el dio shishung ma NDBP. Di ka ngartelom therapy PIDB hindi sige del mindset telwasen dia instead mora PIDB tial FSM mabelaw ma Marshall makwam ma Marian Saibal ngaraun makita bay inject taw do der say bay kilo ka inject ra NDBP marngal gel bela sabel hindi selpo mo sa der tiagi the interest rate kasi maybe it's something to actually really consider leng mal gora attractive ay gal interest rate there kami ka tiyak mo na sendi mo yora adel lungil la isela lungil la payment ter ngi en sobil di al cap tial interest en sobil ay kautel wasing 4 to 10% or 4 to 12% depending on
I see.
Makora di so kal muaw the swemel girel segi del wase go adi so haloger so why should we actually invest convince our leaders agit was please consider the invest besides call ngalgel la vela CEO.
No, akmal appreciate it al question le one ra mokte kan nga egal engagement ma opportunities and travel ra egal pe kalbalura Micronesia mga adu ang ulmang mal strong partnerships ra PIDB makuk Development Bank Marshall Islands ma FSM Development Bank ngle say gidil wabla original mokte our founders and then somehow in lo de kalutal convey the over the years ako operations ra PIDB amlo mimic operations ra local institutions really by circumstance yung da sa misung yamay it's all about options alta ang kakaraw sa operations sa kamam kakaraw sa risk appetite ang kakaraw sa igel to missing factors ilguk kalome sa igel local development bank sa makamam speaks to credit worthiness sa ability to take on the risk. So maybe the risk appetite ra NDBP ako ngot ra risk appetite ra PIDB migi mo mes kasi nga areas where they're either unwilling or unable to take on additional risk, and then how can PIDB come and augment or at the very least provide an option for people who are unable to access terms and conditions and malospe.
Ako misa kami kung flexible. Flexible according to the applicant. Na kung dasa kung malwilling al find al wasi magara kung accommodate al help ranggang musab el mutialo do. So I think ako dasa man kora mal reasonable malungil.
Thank
hopefully,
you.
Yeah.
Credit ra tingal policy makers ra PIDB. Because sige dem na intent tertir kasi let's not duplicate what's already being done. If there is duplication, it's really by circumstance and it doesn't arise out of ako kamamal purposely agi compete for good borrowers. Any lending institution is going to look at credit worthiness from a risk perspective on hang makanada protect ra capital ra bangka.
I see.
Kasi abang kasi kluat a default ma deficiency kada mo absorb alo sila kada charge off capital ra gagidil balua amo ngariyo apan during as a result of charge offs.
Ang nga niya applicant el plan award loaner mortir el nosab el consolidate loaner ni whether mlara NDBP al upang Bank of Guam, Bank of Y kung mo compare loaner ni di mo wan el upang kamiu.
Oo. Namor nga many instances where atakukmal mo kurusi service sa patukalbek patingila loan silang kakaraw sa interest rates ang sukob tamay kasi gimal mo struggle with repayment silang ay gagid ako loan sa kamamal gim nila na other institutions and dityal loan rabli mamamal at di mamal mo makita rin ito mo apply. Really those are the situations gibo mo mes kasi okay consolidation of mal longing at the arala repayment mangguk mo sa household then meet their household needs.
So their interest is actually lower than their other banks.
Sil to consolidate ting mantian longing at the repayment ma interest rate ra agil outstanding debts ra.
Wak matangel wasi nga ya meeting argara tridori makoradi mang bay kapay masaulan lo sa ML meguk share igal information mar atal guk interested mang marenga sulela Chinese no sabel upload their tial website ter kami matigal sa pari loreng sa umsa tiaraw real nga ngitil garir nga sel contact number ma sel information ra application mang I'm sure that sa pari email contact ter ka matikmol maskaw yatim gorati do igel klum me o kore tong simleng. I don't want to hold you back from your next meeting. Ang maka-abul maran na mo marig de bra rakap sangay magamaran masaurat te alguk blo sa PML May.
No, may nga kaman mara nga sound it's been a whirlwind few weeks. The saying that most of the communications ra kama application process happens online virtually. Gimakote refer or okya ra kama man mura website which is www.pacificidb.com. Arokul forms, may checklist ra kama contact information is all on there. Hindi nga lomay salmay, and I really do make it a point to try and make time for everyone that wants to meet.
And get along.
alone. But I'll be happy to answer questions about a checklist na ma'am, or again requirements silgi mo, evaluate alone, or even if you've submitted an application, daka mo tingin kasi application or kang status ringi, or what place you are on the wait list. Alone team or mamal fully willing and communicate on the status of their applications. So.
Yeah, kamaran masulang. Kamaran masaurat te alal mo sa ML me o mana omlutan me please mo wise ma liga to open na ngin mar atarabaluman nga kadrirel gora color kalo ke raikel gora kadrir Michael ngaran rid sa ML ango sutrin sorry la plalo na. Magamaral masaw la ay kadamaran mareng asule la spider Palau Eco Paradise team gukmlo sa link maral masaw gukmlo sa pamilo reng se omesertiang ya Dios lon mo makngal tanga tergidero huy mapalwat pelaw misulang.